for us to have, I'm sorry, all of us want to have a safe planet. We want to do whatever we can to reduce our carbon footprint. And this division that you've caused in town is really, really a shame. I just want to say, so thank you. That's it. Goodbye.
Thank you, Roberta. I think we have another public comment from Gary Hedden.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Gary Hedden. Tonight I have two announcements from Greentown. First, the bike tour. Oh, you know what? I could even take let you see that I'm a real person. Maybe. There, hello. First, the historic bike tour for historic homes is this Sunday. Jim Thurber and I will be leading it. Check out the Greentown website to find the link to Eventbrite. I hope you can sign up. Second, and this is more relevant to the Environmental Commission maybe, as you know, heat pump technology is probably the most impactful way to combat climate change, but people just don't get it. Just this past week at the City Council meeting on REACH codes, that was all too apparent. Greentown is partnering with San Jose State University to evaluate heat pump technology. Professor Catherine Cushing, a Los Altos resident, is the chair of the Environmental Studies Department. And she asked Greentown to propose a project for her seniors. We proposed two. One, working with Mark Seidel, will work on getting Hyperspace, the arcade game in town, certified as a green business. The other, we will research, talk to experts, contractors, and homeowners to evaluate heat pump technology to heat your homes and your water. We'll find out what works, how much does it cost, who should get it, and how to do it. We will present our findings to the public at a library talk, October 26th, hosted by Greentown, and with your permission, Environmental Commission, at the meeting November 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any more comments? All right, thank you very much. Let's move on down the list on the agenda. We have three items for consideration and action today. The first one, obviously, the Environmental Commission minutes from the last meeting. Do we have any comments, edits from the commissioners on the meeting minutes?
If you're looking for a motion, I'm happy to move approval of the August.
If there aren't any comments, yes, please make a motion.
Move approval of the August 8th meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Chair Delagny,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hecht, Vice Chair Hecht,
You muted, Tom.
Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Humayun,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees,
Yes.
Commissioner Whedon, absent. The minutes are approved 6-1. 6-0, 1 absent.
Thank you, Ranu. Okay, the next item on the list is the Armamental Commission meeting schedule. We had talked about that at the last commission meeting in September. There was the idea, obviously, just to remind you, was to have our meeting start at 6 o'clock. There were some conflicts for at least one, maybe two commissioners for the second Monday of each month at 6 o'clock. I looked at alternative meeting dates. The only additional option that would be available to us would be every other Thursday of each month. So what I'm going to ask you is whether every second Thursday of each month would be acceptable to all of you for a meeting start at 6 p.m. or whether you still, some commissioners still have conflicts.
I will have conflicts on those Thursdays.
All right.
I would have conflicts through February on most of those days.
Thursdays, okay.
Until about 7. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, obviously, changing the meeting schedule was contingent on having all commissioners available for the new meeting schedule and having approval from the council. But since I see that we don't have a consensus, or not all commissioners will be available for an early start at 6 p.m. either on Monday, every other Monday of the month, or every second Thursday, sorry, of the month. I think for the time being, we're going to keep the meeting at 7 p.m. every second Monday of every month.
Chair Delagnew, as a point of order, there is an opportunity for public comment on each item. So if you want to ask for
That's
that,
correct.
and then
That's
the
correct.
resolution.
Yes, that's correct. I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to ask if there are any public comments about this particular item.
Chair Delagnew, did you call my name right now?
No, I did not call your
Okay.
name.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Okay, I don't see any public comments. So let's agree. I don't know if we need to take a vote for that, but I'll, Ranu, you can tell me whether we need to take a vote or not. But since we're not making any changes, we're going to keep the meeting as is, the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. So do we need to take a vote on that, Ranu, or are we good?
I believe the formal rule applies, but I will defer to Director Fairman to confirm that or elaborate on that.
Yes, you could take a vote, and so the minutes can reflect what was voted on, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
So
Aida.
we need to make a motion and then a second and then take the vote.
Okay, who wants to make the motion? To keep the meeting as is, second Monday of every month at 7 p.m.
I'll make the motion to keep the meeting as is.
Thank you, Tom.
Second. Go ahead, Carl.
I second.
Chair Delagnew,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hecht,
Yes.
Commissioner Humayun,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees,
Yes.
Commissioner Whedon, absent. So the meeting time remains the same. Vote of 6-0, 1 commissioner absent.
Thank you, Ranu. Okay, now we need to talk about the gas-powered leaf blower ban. That's something we also had discussed at the previous meeting in August. And we had several discussions about that. What we need to do, what we should do now is actually decide whether we want to support adding homeowners to the enforcement ban for the gas-powered leaf blowers. Do any of the commissioners have questions before we take public comments? I'd like to hear from the commissioners if there are additional questions.
There is a hand raised by Monica Baldwin.
Yes,
Go ahead.
but I'll wait for do the commissioners have any questions before I?
Yes. Let's ask the commissioners if they have questions first.
I think probably may not everyone know that we're considering it would be also homeowners' responsibility to really communicate such a requirement for their gardener. And so I think we should probably have an outreach effort to let our resident aware of this so that they have a chance of knowing this and they can see the benefits. And before we impose that, you know, both the homeowner and the gardener will be fine for them to continue to use the gas power leaf blower.
Laura?
So 2 things, point of order. I think we're supposed to be just asking questions right now, not discussion. And I'm happy to address that when we get to discussion. But I'll look to you, Chair Delagno, if you want me to do that now or wait until after public comment.
Yeah, I think let's wait a little bit on this one. Do we have any other questions? Doesn't look like it. So I think we can take public comments now. So I see one hand raised from Monica Waldman.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Monica Waldman. I've been a Los Altos resident for more than 2 decades, and I am a commissioner on a different commission, but I am speaking as a private citizen today. We all agree that Los Altos' ban on gas-powered leaf blowers in California's AB 1346, a ban in 2024 that selling new gas-powered lawn equipment are good ideas. Tonight, the Environmental Commission will debate asking for property owners as well as the operators of gas-powered leaf blowers to be possibly fined in Los Altos. I have 3 concerns about the proposal. First is today's agenda item 3, which is what we're discussing on page 7, has a list of cities that have demonstrated, quote unquote, enforcement will be much easier if the ordinance is modified to hold the property owners as well as the operators responsible for the illegal use of gas-powered leaf blowers. The list is misleading and has some untruths. Cupertino and Saratoga, which are listed, do not ban gas-powered leaf blowers, and their ordinance is a noise pollution ordinance for all blowers over 65 decibels at 50 feet. Santa Monica bans all leaf blowers, gas and electric, and their ordinance says it may fine property owners, emphasis on the word may. Laguna Beach and Redondo Beach also ban all leaf blowers, which are gas and electric, and they do not have a fine that I could find in their homeowners mentioned in their code enforcement web pages. Second is I looked at Menlo Park's Environmental Quality Commission notes because they are listed as one of the cities that may have a ban and have homeowners enforce the ban. And their meetings minutes from May 18th say Commissioner Elkins provided an update from Palo Alto regarding their gas-powered leaf blower ban, noting a new code enforcement officer was hired to enforce the ban's escalating citation schedule for homeowners and gardeners violating the ordinance. So my question is that about that is that Palo Alto has had to find the funds to pay another enforcement official. Do we have the funds to do this? And third, my third concern is penalizing the homeowner for what a gardener does and makes the homeowner an unwilling informant and enforcer of this ordinance. Homeowners may likely not be home. Not everybody is retired or working from home. They might not be home when the gardener is there. So they are not in the position to observe what the gardener is using. The gardener may say they're using electric, but they don't know. And I feel like you may be encouraging neighbors to snitch on neighbors. And anybody who has friends or relatives from Eastern Bloc countries knows that that is just not a good idea. And that is my statement.
Thank you, Monica. We have another comment, I believe, from Roberta Phillips.
Hi, I just want to say that I agree with everything that Monica just said. I think she's really done her homework, and I think that she's really on spot. I don't think that the ordinance today is working, and I don't think that trying to punish people more is going to make people more aware. I think you're better off educating people than trying to hit them over the head. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. I think that was the last public comment, unless there is.
You're on mute.
I don't know why I was on mute all of a sudden, but anyway, so I don't think we have any more public comments. So let's get back to the discussion around this. I think what we've had discussion already at last meeting. What I think Laura was asking for the commission to vote yes or no to add homeowners to the current enforcement ban. And she provided context for this. I think if maybe Laura, you can just summarize very briefly the situation and what we're really asking the commissioners to do today.
Yeah, so to clarify, this is only to have a statement of support that would then go to be forwarded by this citizen group to take to the council. This is not even within our purview to be able to amend the ordinance. So this is simply the Environmental Commission stating that we believe it would be better, there would be better enforcement capability on behalf of code enforcement's under their purview. And they, the police department has the code enforcement officers that go around and enforce all of our codes. So it will be up to them how it's used. It doesn't mean that every homeowner would be fined upon first offense or anything like that. And the way they have operated in the past has been to provide a lot of notice and to talk with homeowners and gardeners. And it really probably would be far down the road before anybody received a fine. This is simply the commission making a statement that we support this being added to achieve better enforcement. And there has been a lot of education about the gas-powered leaf blower ban done in the current situation to try and educate landscapers. And it's not as effective as in discontinuing their use. I'll stop there because I don't want to go too long.
That's fine, thank you. Yeah. No, clearly we've had a ban since 1994, and we still have a lot of gardeners in Los Altos using gas-powered leaf blowers. So, even though, like Laura mentioned, there was a lot of outreach education done over the years by the city, by various commissions, by citizen groups, but it's obviously not working. So the real question in front of us today is whether we would be supportive of adding homeowners to the enforcement ban. I think that's all we're asking to do, and unless there are additional comments or questions, or I think we can simply move forward with the motion, if that's okay with everybody.
I wanted to point out, I did look into Palo Alto just to understand what they were doing better. And I saw it was very clear that the first instance is just a notice. It's not any sort of fine penalty. And they also have a system on their website where you can drop a pin where you saw one. And so they have a very non-confrontational way, and also a way that doesn't jam up police lines. I know if you try to report one right now, you call up the line and the first thing they're going to say is this an emergency? So you're diverting time from that. And that's less than ideal. So I do think there's just a communications piece of this that's going to have to go with it, of making it easier to report in a way that where they can get to it at the reasonable time.
All right. Any other comments from the commissioners? No. Okay, so let's, who wants to make a motion to support adding homeowners to the current enforcement ban for gas-powered leaf blowers.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chair Delagny,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hecht,
Yes.
Commissioner Humayun,
Abstain.
Commissioner Humayun, good to hear you.
I think she's trying to abstain.
Yeah, I think you have some problem with your microphone, Rashina.
Commissioner Liu? You're on mute.
I support it, but I do want what Carl just said. I think we need to have some modified languages.
Would you like to
rather
make a
than-
friendly amendment?
Right, yeah, I think I support, but I think we need to have an effort to make it can be acceptable to our community in a collaborative way instead of just fine penalty based.
So, do we need a motion, Director Fairman?
Yeah, okay, so so you want to make an amendment which would add to the fact that we potentially in the motion, we would be supportive of adding homeowners to the enforcement ban, but you would want also that this will be accompanied by some additional education and outreach.
Yes,
Did I capture exactly what you wanted to do? Yes?
yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to modify the motion made by Tom. So the Environmental Commission supports adding the homeowners to the current enforcement ban for gas powered leaf blowers, but additional education and outreach should also accompany that enforcement ban.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay,
Chair Delagny,
yes.
Vice Chair Hecht,
I guess I have a question. Did the first motion go away? Or do we not?
the motion was amended, so I have to take a vote because it was between the motion that we made the amendment.
Yes.
So I'm going to jump in. Hi, everybody. It's Nisa. Just to make sure that we make a good record. If it's an amendment to the motion, it's a friendly amendment, then the mover of the motion, which was Tom, would have to accept that amendment. And then the seconder, which was Laura, would have to accept it. If it's a substitute motion, then that's completely different and it would supersede the original motion. So you're operating as if it's a substitute motion, but what was actually made was a friendly amendment.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. So, so Tom, do you accept the friendly amendment from Xiaoping to your motion?
Yes.
Okay, and Laura, do you second that motion?
Yes.
Okay, now we can take the vote.
Chair Delagny,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hecht,
Yes.
Commissioner Humayun,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes,
Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees,
Yes.
Commissioner Whedon. So the motion passes 6-0, 1 absent.
Thank you. Thank you, Ranu. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Council Member Nisa Flieger, for the clarification around these friendly amendments.
Can I
All right.
ask one clarifying thing since we
Yes.
amended this statement? Is it okay if I write a statement as I understood it? So in order to forward that on to the council? Or it would, or how does that, how would that be forwarded on to the council as a statement from the commission?
Great
I
question,
believe it's going to be in the
Commissioner.
meeting minutes, right? So that should be enough, no?
Only if they read it.
So if you, Commissioner Texler, great question. So if these are your recommendations for staff to take to city council, before council directs staff to proceed in a specific direction, you should provide the recommendation to staff, but also as part of the minutes. So be included in the meeting minutes, but also you're, providing the recommendation to staff, so staff can take it to council on your behalf, with your recommendation, and then from there they'll make a decision and direct staff with an action.
Okay, thank you.
Although this is a little bit different, right? Because the commission is supportive of doing something at the request of an outside group, Los Altos group, right? So how does that work in terms of, because we're not necessarily asking staff to do anything at this stage. Is that correct, Laura? It's going to be up to the citizens group actually to go back to the council with that support from the Environmental Commission.
That was the original intent, but I think I can just take what's put in the meeting minutes and provide that to the Greentown group, and then they can use, they have the statement that's been confirmed by the Environmental Commission, and I guess could use that as, part of their presentation.
Oh, I see. So that was the intent for that group, not for you to provide a recommendation to, okay, thanks for the clarification.
All right. I think we're good on this one now, right? Okay, thank you very much. So we're done with the items for action, and then we're going to move to the informational item sections. And the first one on the list is actually a presentation from Block Power, Climate and Energy Startup. Let me provide a little bit of context, and I will introduce the speaker. The CAP implementation subcommittee has been talking to Block Power for quite a while now. I think we started talking probably in March or April. And to provide some context, the idea is as simple as to say we want to be able to help Los Altos residents that want to switch from a gas appliance, want to switch a gas appliance with an electric appliance. It can be for electrification of the home or a larger building. It can be for switching only one single gas appliance. The fact of the matter is, in order to be able to do that, right now it's fairly complex. It's fairly complex because not all contractors would be able to install heat pumps. It's fairly complex because there are a significant number of rebates or incentives that are available today, and the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act add additional incentives to that kind of effort. So in other words, in addition to getting incentives from various local groups and the state, residents can now get incentives, tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act that was just passed. So there is some complexity around doing it and taking advantage of all the benefits that are currently available. So one of the things we have been looking at the subcommittee level is to look at ways to allow people that are interested in making that switch, ways to give them the tools to be able to do it in a way that's going to be the most effective for them and the most cost efficient for them as well. So there are different ways of doing it. One of the ways we can do it is by partnering as a city with an outside organization that specializes in building electrification, and one specifically that are starting to work with cities, partnering with cities to do citywide electrification programs. Again, I should mention that that would be a completely voluntary program. It's not something we're going to impose on anybody. It's just to make additional services available for people that are interested in switching. So with that being said, there aren't that many companies that provide those services, but Block Power in one of those. They have already started to work with cities. I think it's something fairly new. The company was starting in 2014. They've started in New York doing building electrification in multi-housing buildings in New York. And they're now expanding to the West Coast. They've done some work in Oakland. They have a new partnership, I think, with the city of Menlo Park. And that's something that we as a city may want to consider as well. So with that being said, I'm going to let Rupak from Block Power introduce us to Block Power in more details and tell us also more about what they're doing right now with cities.
Thank you so much, members, for having me over and allowing me to speak about Block Power. As Bruno indicated, Chairman Delagnu, we've been speaking for a few months, so I'm here to present to the broader group today. Ronnie, would you like me to present, or would you feel? Thank you so much. So now, next slide, please. Okay, to kick off, we're Block Power, a Black-led climate tech company and benefit corporation founded in 2014. We are actually headquartered in New York City in Brooklyn. That's where the majority of our work is taking place. Over the last few years, we have actually expanded to Oakland, California, where we have tens of projects completed and several hundred in the pipeline. And we actually recently signed a resolution commitment with the city of Menlo Park, which I'll be speaking about later. And what we do is we develop, implement, and finance both energy efficiency and clean energy projects for building owners, with a specific focus on lower and moderate income owners in urban areas. And on the right side of the slide here, you can see some of our project financing holders, as well as some of our partners and investors. So some based in the Bay Area, but really a national footprint there. Next slide, please. So what our company does is, sorry, go ahead. What our company really does is focus on three different areas. So we use data and technology. So from a city program level, this looks like a tool called Block Maps, which is basically a 3D mapping tool, which is able to ingest any number of data sources in order to help cities and municipalities and utilities plan building electrification programs. So where to start, what are the most impactful buildings to begin with? Second, we have a tool called Instant Building Report. These are for building owners to receive an estimate for electrification. This product is currently live in our New York market. So owners in New York State are able to, building owners in New York State, homeowners in New York State are able to go online, enter their information in, and there's a report that spits out what we anticipate the project to cost, as well as what we anticipate their savings to be from any services provided. And and then we also do financing. So actually the screenshot there in the financing area is the final output of any of our Instant Building Report entries online. So we provide full stack and responsible financing that includes both capital and incentives. So really what we found is there are a lot of folks who want to do electrification but can't. So we provide 15 to 20 year lease to own options. These lease to own options do not place a lien on the home. They just place a lien on the equipment. And they're available to those who need them. And then finally, community-driven enablers. We work on job creation through workforce development. So we have a program with the city of New York to do so. And the idea here is, the HVAC industry is severely under-resourced to help make the transition. Next, we do community connectivity through Wi-Fi. Two purposes here. One is a lot of our lower and moderate income communities don't have digital connectivity. And second, the connectivity allows them to connect their newly electrified buildings and homes to allow them to participate in demand response programs. And finally, I'm based in Redwood City, and I'm helping work on the Menlo Park program. And so we work on a community-driven basis. So in Menlo Park, before we do any work, we're actually setting up a community advisory board, which would help us advise on best messaging to engage the community, sort of raise any issues that come up before, let's say, a quarterly meeting in real time, and to really try to build community trust and sort of grow the program in a way that some other tech companies have not done. Next slide, please. And this slide speaks a bit to the way we think about scaling. So the majority of businesses sort of pick early adopters with sort of high margin and high price tag products, and then from there they move to the majority in the mass market, and then go to laggards. We're really focused on tackling put in two ways. One is the toughest projects, so the homes and buildings that are most in need, and then as well as the mass market, so that we're starting with the toughest problems first, so that we're able to address all problems in the entire market. Next slide, please. So locally, as I mentioned, the city of Menlo Park has the city council approved a resolution of commitment on June 14th to work with us. This is not a formal contract, but it is a sort of public-private partnership commitment to help electrify over 10,000 homes between now and 2030. And next slide, please. So this is a bit of what that looks like. So and we talk a lot at Block Power about going slow to go fast, and going slow to go far. So initially this year, we are targeting 15 buildings and households for electrification. We'll begin to try to work with local contractors to build trust and establish an ecosystem. We'll establish a community advisory board. We're pretty close to doing that. And then we're looking to try to engage in a workforce development pilot. We're actually speaking with Job Train about that. Next year, we'll aim to do 100 buildings, 50 single family, 50 multifamily households. And then we'll have established relationship with contractors to help scale. And then based on all of that, we'll be able to build a data model with lessons learned. In the long term, really, what we're hoping to do is whenever in 2-3 years, someone comes in and submits their information online, we'd like our models to be able to generate a pretty thorough scope of the project, so that we can get things going at scale, and also to be able to help lower project costs. And some other things that I haven't mentioned here is, our company does have relationships with some of the larger OEMs. So we're hoping to participate in bulk buying to be able to pass on savings to customers as well. And what all that leads to is the scaling of the program into thousands of homes into the future. Next slide, please. So this is something that was asked for by this commission. So basically, our municipal commitments are laid out here. So basically, going from left to right are sort of the lighter lifts, all the way to the left being our most significant contract. So you can kind of see I've laid out the data, financing, and community impact aspects. So the city of San Luis Obispo, we're working with them directly. So what they've actually chosen to do with us is to develop an instant building report and block maps in concert with Block Power. So they purchased those products separately. We were approved to do project funding there for some pilot projects. And then finally, we're actually running a community advisory board for San Luis Obispo in concert with the city through a grant. And this is basically acting as the intake process for the city to establish their building electrification program. With Menlo Park, we're covering our whole gambit of products through a city council resolution, some directly, some not. And then finally, Ithaca, New York, we've announced an actual contract and commitment with the city to provide our full suite of services. So that's a quick presentation about Block Power and our company. Again, appreciate the invitation to speak here, and would love to kick it over for discussion.
Thank you, Rupak. So before we take questions and have discussions at the commission level, I'd like to take public comments. And I see we have one right now.
Hi again. This is Monica Waldman. I guess you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you for taking my comment. I read the slides and I also read slides from some of the presentations that Block Power has given to other cities and organizations, and I'm very impressed with what they do. Just two comments, or actually maybe three comments. So I believe Ithaca and Menlo Park have been signed on with Block Power in one form or another in the last, during the calendar year of 2022. So just some concerns about them being spread a little thin. I don't know if there are other organizations that do what they do. Concerns that the company still has a learning curve to implement what they need, whether it be looking for contractors or just having boots on the ground to work with each city or municipality. And if they can talk about the comment about lien against equipment, because I know there's been some issues with solar equipment that had liens against either the roof or the equipment, as opposed to a lien against the house, just so homeowners know when they're getting equipment from the company in one form or another, you know, what it means. And that's my comments.
Thank you, Monica. Do we have any other comments? All right, thank you. So I'd like to open the floor for questions and discussion from the commissioners.
I'll go ahead and start us off. My first question is just a general question about the funding mechanisms that you're using. Who's providing the funding? Is it typically through the city? Are you going, you mentioned applying for grants jointly, how that has worked, or you see working in a city like Los Altos, and then do you have experience in working with electric capacity upgrades and working with the utility providers like PG&E and coordinating that, since that can often be a difficult part of the electrification process? And I'll stop with those two questions.
Thank you. So just to kick off with the funding, I'll run through just step by step. As far as our company, we're a venture-backed startup. So as far as our company operations, we're funded by venture funding. Next, we have, as a company, project finance capital. So project finance capital comes from several sources. So as an example, just to name two, Goldman Sachs, Urban Investment Group, and the Microsoft Climate Fund. So these are basically higher than mortgage rate, but typically less than commercial interest rate loans. Next, we as a company do apply for grant funding in two different ways. But one is to help expand our work. As an example, we've received some grant funding from several public entities. Next, we also apply for public funding in concert with cities. So as an example, with the Menlo Park program, we've applied for a Tech Quick Start grant, and the same grant that was used basically to run the Community Advisory Board for the city of San Luis Obispo. And then finally, as far as funding for the partnerships, this is all public information. The Ithaca, New York is giving us direct funding based on achievement of certain milestones. The Menlo Park resolution, as I mentioned, is a resolution from the city council. It's not a commitment. Sorry, excuse me, a resolution commitment, not a contract. And so there's no funding, but the city of Menlo Park has committed to raising $35 million through their efforts. And then, so we'll likely get some funding through software purchase as well as through projects that we complete. And then as far as capacity upgrades, we work with our contractors and developers, and we try to choose our contractor and developer network to be able to do this work. So I can speak to our Oakland work. Certainly, you know, we have experience doing so. And then I think just to address one other point, right? There are a lot of HVAC contractors out there. A significant portion of them do not want to change practices yet to do electrification work. So we're finding that the significant minority that do have experience sort of working in this. If not, I think one of the other things we're looking to do, and I'll speak to some of the work in Menlo Park, is we're actually in conversations with two affordable multifamily housing providers, and those two projects will definitely require transmission upgrades. And so we're looking to build relationships in order to do that, because one of the housing providers has done this in the past. So looking to build relationships in order to enable this in the future. And then, you know, finally, I think continued conversations, right? We would love to have conversations with certainly municipalities, but we're in conversations at the state level as well, as far as upgrading not only the utility transmission process, but also permitting process and improving those as the industry grows.
Great, thank you.
Xiaoping, you are muted still. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. I actually got to know in Bay Area about 2 years ago. There's a network called Bay Rent. I think you're probably fully aware of that. It seems that they offer very similar services. They may not just one entity company, but they offer advisors that work with homeowner individually and understand their needs, and offering all kinds of state offer rebates, and they in some way qualify contractor, and they also offer financing. So how do you differentiate yourself from that? If I'm a Los Altos resident, why will I choose to work with you instead of with them?
Absolutely. So just to take a step back, we're part of the building electrification ecosystem, and we actually work very closely with BayREN. So let's just take an example. If we had a building lead that came through our online portal, let's say through some of our media or a press release in the case of Menlo Park, we would get that. Someone like myself would have a first conversation with them. We would then go engage a local contractor to start working on the project. And often in the case, especially in the case of affordable housing or multifamily units, we would then also engage BayREN to do a few things. First is, as you mentioned, BayREN provides auditing services. So we would help engage them as part of that process. And then BayREN helps administer a lot of rebates, which bring down project costs. So we would engage them in those aspects as well. So we work very closely with BayREN. But as far as not going through block power, I would say the way to not work through block power would be to go to either BayREN's website. They have a contractor network, as you mentioned, or the California Tech Program, TECH program, which is administered through the CPUC. They have a list of approved contractors as well. So you can go on those websites and find qualified contractors who would want to do electrification work through those sources.
Tom, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation. I think it's going to be an interesting space over the next few years, the one you guys are targeting. So I have a lot of questions, but I'll stick with 2 or maybe 3 so the others can also ask questions. I think the first question I have is when I look at your website and I read one of your offering documents, it seems like at least at a high level, you're targeting buildings or low to moderate income residential areas. And I'm not sure Los Altos fits either of those categories in terms of the majority of what we're targeting. Am I thinking about that right? Or how should we think about that?
Great question. So we've actually been in a lot of conversations about our, this goes back to the community advisory board. So we've been in conversation with our marketing team because we've set up a separate Menlo Park intake page. And a lot of folks were confused because the page said buildings and not homes, as we commonly refer to them on the West Coast. So we're really focused, especially as we start in Oakland and in Menlo Park, on single family residences and, multifamily residential buildings. And, although we're open to working with small commercial as well. So those are the two sort of property types that we work with as of right now. But, we'll look to expand as the technology gets better as well.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, again, when I look through some of your, the website and some of the offering docs you have, it looks like a lot of your revenue is based on leases for the equipment, and actually not loans, but leases. And so is that how you would think of a relationship with us, offering leases to homeowners, or do you offer loans, or do you offer cash purchases as well? Just trying to figure out the business model in Los Altos.
Absolutely. So I think it's again, want to acknowledge Ms. Waldman's comment. We're a small company trying to do a lot of things. So financing is certainly one aspect, but we do offer cash purchases to our customers. We don't force them to get, we offer them any service they want. So if someone wants just a heat pump, if someone wants just an induction stove, we're not telling them, hey, you have to purchase all of it. So we're open to offering them whatever they want. And then on top of it, I would say, as far as us working together, again, back to the last slide we showcased, I think what we find is, there's some cities that are willing to go full scale partnerships, but one other way to start is just a software purchase, because, our software does allow and is intended to serve as a starting point to help understand where where your building electrification program could start. So and then from there, if you so chose, you could certainly move to find other contractors, et cetera, to do work with. And I apologize, I didn't address another question on your previous point. I know we've heavily mentioned lower and moderate income buildings, but we work with market rate homeowners as well. And just some other information. The way the market's sort of bifurcating right now is we're seeing a lot of adoption from lower and moderate income homeowners who sort of often live in buildings that are not well maintained, so that they're looking for getting better and more comfortable and healthier buildings. And the other sort of segment that we really see knocking on our door are folks who are really motivated by eco changes, who, there's folks we've spoken with who have water heaters that are 5 years old, but they want to replace them. So we cover the whole gamut, but we try to focus on the lower moderate income market to understand the most lessons we can learn as we try to scale.
Okay, thank you. I'll save other questions if we have time.
We have time. I think you can ask your other questions if you want. I think it's the time to do it. I think we want to understand as much as we can what Block Power could provide to Los Altos.
Okay, I'll just ask one other one that I'm curious about is, I guess I'm a little unclear on why the city would need to be involved with Block Power. If I look at some of the residential solar installers, for example, they have software packages and recommendations, and they may step into electrification as well, especially with the latest federal bill. So why should we be thinking we need to establish a specific relationship with Block Power, as opposed to just letting, you could set up a website and target Los Altos, right? So just trying to figure that out as well. Why is this different?
It's a fantastic question. I think one thing to keep in mind is that the cities we've signed up so far have set, as all of you know, there's a broad wave of municipalities refreshing their climate action plans as you're in the process of doing as well. But the cities that we've signed up so far have set up very aggressive targets. So both Menlo Park and Ithaca have 2030 net zero goals, and that's sort of why they helped engage us in order to get there. But certainly, as you said, a city like San Luis Obispo, they're going in a very different direction. They're purchasing our software. They're sort of having us set up the intake page. We're working with them to get some data to help make those models better. And then on the other end, they're working with us to sort of leverage our capabilities and their smaller sort of sustainability department to do the intake process, right? I mean, not everyone in San Jose who went very thoroughly and using their staff built a very thorough report. So yeah, I think the reason cities are partnering with us are these are the cities that have most aggressive targets, and you're certainly correct that we could work with us to just purchase software and go to other means in order to implement the program itself.
Thank you, Rupak.
Do we have additional questions? Xiaoping? I know Rashina and Carl are on the subcommittee as well, but I was wondering if you had additional questions for Rupak.
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. So I think the idea here is really to, if the commission is comfortable with it, for the subcommittee to continue to have discussions with Block Power to see what it would look like potentially for us to work with them. And I think there is a wide list of options. It could be the whole package, kind of like Menlo Park and Ithaca. It could be parts of the package. We can pick and choose. We could pick and choose if we wanted to do that as well. I think there are some questions still remaining around funding. Whether there will be some kind of a need for a partnership in terms of funding, whether it's grant funding, whether it's funding that Block Power could get directly through their supporters and funders, or whether the city, for example, want to set specific targets and then provide some kind of funding around achieving these targets or so on. But there are different ways really to work with them. I think we need to do some more work to figure out exactly what's going to work for Los Altos. We need to understand also, obviously, what Block Power can achieve. I think there were some mentions of, do they have the capacity to do that? How do you scale that up? Are you scaling it up right now for Menlo Park slowly? Can you do the same for Los Altos and potentially other cities, because you may have some additional requests down the road, I hope for you anyway. So that's where we are right now. I think it's an ongoing discussion. I think we need to figure out, we still have a lot to figure out, and we need to understand better how we could potentially work with Block Power to help those residents in Los Altos that are interested in electrifying their home, and owners of large multi-housing, housing family buildings, and also potentially also work with commercial building owners as well, which I think is also something you can provide. All right, so if there aren't any more questions or any more discussions needed, I think we can close this and move on to the next agenda item.
Well,
Thank you, Rupak. Oh yeah, Laura, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for feedback, I mean, I think, I, for one, am very, I think it's very important for us to continue to pursue this, and that it's obvious that existing home electrification, that we need to, approach it in a voluntary way, with incentives and resources. And this looks, given our limited internal resources, having help from an outside entity, I think is a good way to go. And particularly focusing on, if we're going to be able to attract seniors who have, as people like to say, who are house rich and cash poor, to be able to also electrify their homes and enjoy those benefits. So yeah, I think it's great.
Thank you, Laura. All right, thank you, Rupak. We'll stay in touch. Thanks again for making the presentation and answering all those questions from the Commission. Thank you. All right, next agenda item, we are going to get an update by the subcommittee on the REACH code. So I think Tom and Laura, you're up.
Okay. Tom, I'm happy to have you do, but I can go ahead if you want me to.
No, I think it'd be great to hear it, and I'll feel free to add on if I need to editorialize or anything.
Okay, right. So we made our REACH code a presentation that the Environmental Commission's recommendation that we adopted at our last meeting. We presented that to the City Council last week at their meeting. And in addition to our recommendation, included in the staff report was a couple of staff recommendations about how to proceed. And the outcome of that meeting was the council did vote to continue to pursue our recommended REACH code and to direct staff to take a couple steps, including performing a cost effectiveness analysis to research what other surrounding communities are adopting for REACH code 2.0, and to provide a submission to CEC with the eventual codes that are developed around our recommendation. And so staff will be working on writing the code that would follow our recommendation, and we'll then present that. We'll be able to review that and make sure that it's in line with the recommendation as we understood it. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, Director Fairman.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Texler. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Environmental REACH Codes Subcommittee for their work, Commissioners Texler, Hedge, and Whedon. And as Commissioner Texler mentioned, the recommendations were accepted at the September 6th City Council meeting, and City Council provided direction to staff. So now the work from the subcommittee is completed, and staff will be proceeding with the direction given by City Council. And the fourth recommendation that was accepted or approved was for to readopt the current codes, so they're not preempted by the state codes, so continue after 12/31. So the ones that Commissioner Texler mentioned, plus a fourth one. So there were a total of 4 recommendations that were accepted, and direction was provided to staff. Thank you so much to the Commission and Subcommittee for their work.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Fairman. All right, so what kind of timelines are we looking at? I know that now it's staff that has to start drafting the ordinance, and I'm guessing the draft ordinance is going to come back to the EC Commission for discussions and potential changes or whatever.
So for the change ordinance, I don't have a timeline. It's going to depend on CEC review, but that's why we're taking the current ordinance in October to council, so it doesn't get preempted by the state code. But once we have more information, we can provide that information, but we don't have a definite timeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just if CEC does decide that it requires their review, it typically takes about 60 days, I believe, for that process.
Okay, so I think so the current reach codes will be reapproved by the council, or will go back to the council for potential approval again, so that it's extended beyond the 1/1/2023 deadline, correct? Until we get a new reach code.
So if they go to city council in October, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Sorns, they will be readopted, with the building code in time to meet that deadline, and they will not be preempted. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So that would follow the normal adoption cycle.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, congratulations, very good. I'm glad that worked out, and we're still moving forward with these new reach codes. So congratulations to the subcommittee for working hard on this and putting all this together and going to the council and making those presentations. Do we have any more questions or comments from the commissioners? So I need to ask if there are any public comments on this agenda item. There is one hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Dashel Leeds. I'm the conservation organizer for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter with 447 members in Los Altos. The Sierra Club strongly supports the draft reach codes just proposed by the Environmental Commission. We also strongly support the strengthening of the code. Valley Water has developed a model water efficiency ordinance for new development, and they're available to help cities implement these water saving measures into the building codes. So we hope that Los Altos explores this opportunity. I do want to return to gas pipelines. They're an extreme threat to our climate and to our health. In terms of climate, these pipelines consistently leak methane into our atmosphere, all the way from extraction to transportation to use in our homes. Methane gas has more than 80 times the global warming potential of CO2, and short-lived compounds such as methane can warm our oceans and increase sea level rise for centuries to come, even after those compounds are no longer in our atmosphere. And what this means is that time really is a precious gift, and that the methane emissions reductions we achieve today really do count in the long run. And in terms of public health, a 2013 meta-analysis found that children living in a home with gas cooking have a 42% increased risk of having current asthma, a 24% increased risk of lifetime asthma, and an overall 32% increased risk of having current and lifetime asthma. So with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate bill in history, the time has never been better to take climate action. And Los Altos can choose to either future-proof its infrastructure and take advantage of current and future funding and partnerships and invest in the future, or we can stick with gas and the variety of impacts that will come with it. So we know gas pipelines massively accelerate climate change. They make new construction more expensive. They're a public health hazard. We know today that they have no viable future in our society, and that in fact, they will be a burden to current and future generations. So to expand gas infrastructure, even after understanding the consequences, I think is an extreme position. So thank you for putting this reach code forward. We think it's both necessary and reasonable given the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? I don't see any hand raised. All right, I'm just going to ask one more time if there are any additional comments or questions from the commissioners before we move on to the next agenda item. Okay, thank you very much. The next agenda item is the Tree Protection Ordinance, and we are going to hear from the subcommittee on where they are right now with this work.
So I have slides I can present, or Renew, would you rather present them?
I made you the co-host if you like to present them.
Okay, I am happy to. So as mentioned, tree protections is the focus of this, but we will be touching on some other general updates as well for what the subcommittee's been up to. So on this slide, I'll start with that. Then we're going to go into a general look at the situation in Los Altos regarding protecting trees, dive into tree protection ordinance, talk about next steps, and then also funding. So just want to lay out that path for us first. Okay, what we've been doing, I'm going to go through this list. Street tree list is something that we were looking into before we shifted focus to tree protection ordinance. And essentially the findings from that were that, we have one, the city is aware that it is not up to date. And so while it was a point of reference in the past, it is not the current point of reference. And so there is recognition in the city and with us that it does need to be updated. But considering it is not officially in any ordinance code, it is not pointed to in any way as an official capacity, it's not quite as urgent, but we do appreciate the work that Greentown did to make recommendations, and we still have that ready to go when we get to this item, which will come up with urban forest master plan as well. Tree protection ordinance we'll be touching on in greater detail in a few slides. Canopy cover is something that we greatly want to analyze, and we've been talking to experts about doing that analysis so that we know where canopies have been lost and where we might be able to increase canopy in the future. Urban forest master plan we've been researching, and we received a lot of research from Greentown as well on this in terms of what we need to do all to prepare that. On the topic of herbicides and pesticides, we talked to city staff on this, and for the time being have concluded that what they're doing doesn't pose harm, and so we are satisfied with the current measures in place. Funding, we would like to fund a lot of this work that we're proposing, and so and we'll have slides for that later. And then just a general overview of the experts that we've been talking to regarding this outside of city staff. We've spoken with Palo Alto Urban Forester Peter Gollinger and are hoping to get some more reference material from him, as well as two consultancies, Planet Geo and Davie Resource Group, who previously worked with Los Altos on a species analysis. All right, so
I think we're losing you, Carl.
Planet research. I did result. I did get a notice unstable. I have it right now. You have me or no? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's not the best in terms of the audio. So maybe you
try turning off your video in conjunction with providing the presentation.
All right. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn off the light as well then. So as you can see on the left, tree canopy coverage is currently estimated at 29.84%, and over a 10-year period, we lost 2.72%. And then the other measure that's freely available, anybody can look at this, which is treeequityscore.org, and they have this map, which has the relative tree equity score for different parts of Los Altos. And there are several points of data that they use to come up with these, including percent of people in poverty in each area, percent of population that are children, elderly, a health index, and just temperature as well. And these closely follow canopy cover as well. So that gives you a general idea, and that score of 71 is lower out of 100, if that wasn't obvious. A lot of our neighboring cities have higher scores, generally in the low 80s. So that's just big picture on that. And then what's going on currently in Los Altos, city works and planning, designated staff for these functions, reviewing and granting tree removal permits, keeping track of city-owned tree inventory, and performing regular maintenance. The city previously had an arborist, but there's no current resident arborist on board. Trees on public land and on public right-of-way are controlled by Public Works, and those trees are logged in Treekeeper database, and roughly 100 are removed per year. And then on the other side of that, instead of public, this is now we're talking private, and that's controlled by the planning department. And there are 100 to 200 removal permits per year. And but that isn't clear whether those are always multiple trees or single trees. And then we know there's additional trees removed for development in addition to those numbers. All right, now getting into tree protection ordinance. The subcommittee has been reviewing a lot of different criteria that need to be figured out in any update that we would want to suggest. And so just go through these very briefly. They're also what height potentially. I'm getting a warning of unstable internet connection, so apologies if my audio is not coming through. Removal permit fee. Just do we want to increase this, and how much, what might that be? Clear permit approval criteria. How do people make sure that they know exactly why they might get not be approved for their removal permit, or you know? And so then tree replacement requirements, as in how many trees might need to be planted in replacement of a tree that's removed. Would that look like certain species, certain heights, certain canopy cover? And another thing related to that is an in lieu fee. If for some reason the property cannot possibly put a tree in replacement of a tree that needs to be removed, is there a system in place to direct money to help plant trees elsewhere? Another consideration is penalty for removing or harming a tree. Similar mention I mentioned from 4 is tree management funds. If you're increasing fines, or in general, when we're generating this money, where does that money go? What does it serve to do? And then just how this ties to the urban forest master plan. So we did a analysis of other cities in the Bay Area. And so this eliminates some trends in general of how Los Altos compares in terms of diameter at breast height and circumference used. We are only protecting, generally the tallest trees compared to other cities, and others also specify certain species. So the trimming penalty, we don't have one, but you can see the range of 100 to 1,000 plus. Removal penalty, again, we're on the low end. Removal permit fee, we're lower than a lot of what we found. Replacement criteria, 1-for-1, does occur in other cities, but we've also seen in Palo Alto has a 6-to-1. You need to plant 6 trees if one is removed. And then an in lieu fee, as I talked about earlier, we don't have one. Some places do, some don't. And then if you want to look at actual specific examples, there is a table attached as well to see exactly what other cities have in place for some of these things that we want to figure out. That's not an exhaustive list of things, but a lot of the higher level discussions we've been having. So in terms of next steps, where we are trying to work with staff, city managed tree inventory change over time, get more data on that, the removal of trees on privately owned land. And we're going to continue to talk to experts about where we might be able to get help on the tree protection ordinance updates, canopy analysis, and urban forest master plan. And then also seeking to figure out what is the best way to start approaching getting funding with the city via grants or city funds. And then still hoping to hear back from staff on arbitrary foundation tree city designation. We believe we might be able to qualify, but we still need confirmation on that. And I will pass it to Xiaoping now to talk more about potential funding for urban forest master plan work.
Thank you, Carl. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we are considering several ways of funding this urban forest program for our city. First would be, working with our city so that we have some budget to work with. And, this is going to be, multi-year. We have, we'll plan to do things step by step. And the other area that we can consider is applying for grants for urban forest program that is offered by CAL FIRE. The climate bill passed, so California is expected to receive funding, federal funding, maybe up to $85 million. This can probably take some time, but we understand, we know that the funds is going to be dispersed in the coming October very soon. So we like to kick off this grant application process with CAL FIRE. And according to some other cities around Bay Area, their experiences since 2018 and the current progress, it takes about 6 to 8 months in order, when we submit an application, it takes about 6 to 8 months for us to get a grant. So we like to start that as soon as we can. And I wanted to, avenue of getting funds would be, research into any private or corporate foundation that they are willing to fund our program. And also, Carl mentioned earlier that, the tree management fund that we collected from our city, as far as, permits or various things, we can utilize that to fund our project. And the next slide, please. So these just some examples of the city in our Bay Area that they have been granted by CAL grant program in this 2021 through 2022 timeframe. As we can see, a city as large as San Francisco, they have been granted $1.5 million, for the kind of work that they have committed to do. Not only planting tree, but also outreach to the community through street fairs, and also create jobs and training. Or city as small as the Carmel by the Sea, they have been granted $150,000. So I think that we have, we're very hopeful. If we can start this process now, we can be looking at obtaining grants sometimes mid next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Xiaoping, and thank you, Rashina, for the presentation. I would like to ask the public to make comments if they have any comments to make on this this presentation. Raise your hand if you want to make a comment. I see one. Okay, Gary Hayden, go ahead.
Hello again. Gary Hayden, Los Altos resident and a member of Greentown. We've been planting trees for 3 years now. We're up to 311, and we'll start again in November. So I like the report. There's so much going on here that's very hopeful. So I'm optimistic. I also like the idea of pursuing Tree City USA. Part of it is just the publicity you get when you get the mayor out there planting a tree on Arbor Day. This last Arbor Day, this last April, we actually had 2 mayors out there when we planted one in Shaw Park. No, it was actually Redwood Grove. And so we had Mayor Enander as well as George Tyson, who came down from Los Altos Hills. So it's a great way to get the word out. So good luck. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right, let's ask questions for the subcommittee and have that discussion. I'll open the floor for discussions and questions. From the commissioners, Aida Feldman, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Delano. Before you start on the discussion, I want to first thank for your work for the subcommittee here, but I do want to make a clarification so we go in the right direction. So there is a difference between the tree master plan, that's one item, the urban forest management plan, that's one item, and the tree protection ordinance. And I wanted to highlight that per the meeting minutes of May 24th council meeting, consent item 5 for the tree protection ordinance, that's what City Council directed the Environmental Commission to work on. And it reads like this: direct the Environmental Commission to work with city staff to evaluate the city's tree protection ordinance and recommend changes as needed. Council member Flagler expressed some concerns around scope. City Manager England responded that they will only address technical aspects and not policy. So I just wanna remind, the commission about, that, and also, that would link to the work plan. So as I mentioned during the last meeting, and the commission went through the exercise to prioritize Rich Coates is number 1, tree protection ordinance, that's an item by itself, not part of any other tree master plan or urban forest management plan, is the second priority in the list. And Rich Coates by itself, there's a lot of work to do here, and we just need to be realistic. And as I mentioned, this is a reset, and I just want to make sure that we set, the commission for success to, and the city to achieve those goals, and being realistic on that. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think I believe in your presentation you mentioned that I think it's Xiaoping that mentioned that it's potentially a multiple year project, but I think clearly updating the either updating or developing new guidelines for tree preservation in Los Altos is a priority of the council, and I think it should be a priority obviously of the Environmental Commission, and therefore I would just make the comment that as a subcommittee, you should really focus on that particular aspect of the let's put it this way, the tree master plan. So that being said, I think you guys have done a tremendous work already on your own. A lot of research went on. You have already a lot of information in there. I think that can guide the development of that updated tree preservation guideline. And I think I don't know if you at a stage where you can have these discussions with staff. I know we're probably going to hear later on about updates on our coordinator, but I think that would be for you definitely a direct asset to be able to put something together. So I had a question actually about your presentation, which had to do with the tree canopy loss. You mentioned that we've lost 2.72% over the past 10 years. I was wondering if that was due to, what was that due to specifically? Do you have any idea?
We can only make assumptions. We didn't get that actual determination from partner that sent it to us. I think we have thrown around the idea of drought being a potential reason for that, but I don't recall that we had one specific thing that we're saying is with the only cause. Xiaoping or Rashina, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, it could be disease also. Drought and disease. I think we think that those are probably two major reasons.
Right. Yeah. And that's
so we do not. I don't know my
increase over
connection.
time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Rashina.
Okay. Yeah. So my connection's flaky, and I'm losing my voice. So I'm just saying that we don't have the details on this. This is something that we kind of need to work with a consultant to give us the data to do the analysis to help us understand why we have lost and where we have lost that canopy. We are, however, I think anecdotally from the data compared to cities around us, we have been doing poorly in comparison. So I don't think that there has been a similar amount of canopy loss in our neighboring cities. But again, that's the detailed data we'll have to go get once we have some minimum funding in place to fund that study.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge we're going to be facing over the next few years, is that drought and disease caused by drought actually is going to kill more and more trees. And, you know, it's a catch-22. We're trying to plant new trees, but at the same time, we have to make sure we replace the trees that die. So that's going to be a challenge for sure. Another question that I had is, you talked about funding. So let's, maybe if I can, I'd like to make the two different items which I was mentioning, the tree preservation guideline and the urban forest master plan. I think obviously you probably will need funding to get someone to help you develop the urban forest master plan, like we had someone for the CAP, and like we had some other consultants for other large projects. But with regards to the tree preservation guidelines, do you think would you be comfortable doing it with staff, assuming that you have staff has the bandwidth to be able to do that with you, or do you think you would need a consultant to help you with that?
So I'll try and take that one. So we could work with staff, but given that City of Los Altos does not have an in-house arborist and our staff is stretched, I think we would need support. And again, this is a relatively small amount of funding with from either, you know, someone like Planageo Canopy or Davy Resource Group, who did our tree resource guide in 2017. So I think it would be really helpful to have some funding to do the update. Of course, the urban forest master plan is a much bigger thing that will definitely need funding, that we will need to apply for grants for further down the line. Yes. Yeah, so currently we're focusing on the tree removal permit and not looking at the master plan in general at the moment.
Okay. So I think, and I'm going to ask Director Furman to help me with that. I think in general, if you think you will need funding to be able to put together the revised or the newly developed tree preservation guideline, I think that's a discussion that would have to take place with staff, depending and see where the money could come from. You mentioned at some point grant funding. Is that something we can really access, whether it's some kind of it's private funding from foundations? And you know, I know from experience that it takes a long time to get money from foundation. It could be public funding if there is anything available around that. What do you think? What's the best? What could be the best approach if they needed a small budget to be able to work with you and with potentially a consultant on these new tree preservation guidelines?
Yeah, and as I mentioned on consent item 5, so staff takes the lead and the commission works with staff, and then we'll determine if that's needed. And then we have some small funding that was allocated in the budget for sustainability. Also from that budget, we would need the money to do the local cost analysis for the REACH codes. And then depending on what's needed for the tree protection ordinance, if that specialty is not in-house, then we would look at the budget and staff would determine, you know, how much is needed for, you know, retaining outside a third party. Would you like to add anything, Director Sorns?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm gonna kind of help try to create some path and very clear direction for you folks tonight. I don't believe any of my staff, which is the planning staff, which is actually the ones that review and issue tree removal permits, and it's by my granting authority as the Director of Development Services that they're able to do so. that staff really needs to be taken into consideration based on what are some of the practical issues in regards to the actual technical components of that ordinance. A lot of what was covered tonight is really more so a policy decision, which is something that can be recommended to the city council. But ultimately, certain things of an actual fee, what that fee would actually entail is not something that would be set by this commission. You can recommend that we increase based on some of the findings that you have in reference from other jurisdictions. The consideration of an in lieu fee, increasing, I guess, also the essentially removing a tree without permit violation, things of that nature. When it does come to things of grants, I do want to make sure that I touch on this because it's extremely important. I am a very big proponent of grants. And I've said before, we unfortunately as an agency have missed out on several hundreds of thousands of dollars of grant opportunity for non-competitive grants in other arenas. However, the urban forestry grants that are issued by CAL FIRE have always required a 75-25 matching requirement. That's pretty significant where our city has not allocated any appropriations for something of this nature. So that's going to have to be a very significant conversation with the city council when we do go to either mid-year or annual budget renewals for the city. So I want to make sure that that's at the forefront of everyone's discussion because it's really something that could impact some of the conversations that are being had tonight as well as in the near term future. I would like to recommend that the subcommittee does take consultation with the staff of the Development Services Department to focus directly in on the tree preservation ordinance and really what they see as of today, I had a very extensive conversation with a particular violation that has now been held in the city with very limited options as to why they actually violated it. It's just the intent of what our ordinance actually is and the lack of teeth thereof in order to actually effectively do what our city wants. So there's a lot of technical aspects that need to be consulted with the city staff before I think this item continues to move further down the road.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So I think it's pretty clear what the next step would be, I think, for the subcommittee at this stage with regard to the tree preservation guidelines is start having that discussion with staff and start really dig deep into or deeper into what it would look like. And then, you know, the question mark about the budget is one that can be discussed with staff and then you guys can figure out or we can figure out how to get it. Do I have other questions for the subcommittee from the commissioners or points of discussions or comments or? So I'll just, if there aren't any more questions or points of discussion, I'll ask the subcommittee whether they're comfortable at this stage with the discussion we've had today and the clarification from the staff in terms of what to do next and specifically with regards to the tree preservation guidelines.
I found this very helpful to hear those comments. Yes, so I think we have a clear course of action.
All right. All right, thank you very much. So we move on to the next agenda item, which is the Environmental Commission work plan. So we've touched, we actually went through quite a few items on the work plan. I just wanted to go through the list and ask if there are any comments from the people working on every single project on this work plan. We've talked about the presentation and discussion we had with Block Power. It's kind of one of the things we're looking at the subcommittee level for the CAP implementation. We're also looking at upgrading and updating our webpage so that we have information available to residents to help them actually electrify their home. So it's not going to be as complete as working with an outside company, for example, that could potentially do everything for them with one single phone number, one single email. But the idea here is that we're putting together something that's comprehensive, that's going to help residents figure out how to get a contractor, figure out how to get incentives, basically money through various incentives available right now, and so on. So these are the two key points, key items that we're working on at the subcommittee level. So continuing the discussion with Block Power, involving staff with that discussion with Block Power, and then also having a resource page on the Los Altos website for people that would be interested in electrifying, whether it's one single appliance again, or whether it's more than one single appliance, and have a resource page for them to find information that will be needed.